Hi everybody and welcome to another episode of Work in Progress with me, ProxyDamage. Today we're going to be talking about patch notes, about the current patch notes that are in the PTS for testing and how they're going to, in my view, affect the game. I'm going to review the patch notes if you want. We're not going to be covering Ravana because, well, it's a new character and let's be fair, the first couple of weeks in the actual main servers are the actual test weeks, and they see a lot of changes after that. And also, it's its own subject. It deserves its own episode if you want. I haven't got around to testing it too much, so I'm going to be talking about it some other time. So, patch notes. I'm going to be putting the link to the patch notes around here somewhere so you guys can look at it. Gameplay, right? So, gameplay changes. Fire Giant and Gold Fury have 50% reduction in lifesteal, right? So now it's a little harder to solo the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant. I guess it's a positive change overall because, especially with the Gold Fury, it was easy to solo them relatively early. Like as soon as you had the lifesteal item, Devourers, and they were a little bit stacked, or if you had like a first power item and then Azi, that was good enough to get the to solo the Gold Fury, and that put on a fairly high amount of pressure on those objectives because if you didn't have any vision on them, very early into the game, someone could just sort of sneak in and steal it and do them solo. That said, like Fire Giant, there wasn't that much of a problem because Fire Giant is harder to solo in general. But like, overall, I guess it's a positive thing. But I still wish that the Gold Fury was a more interesting fight, right? I mean, right now all the Gold Fury does is run at you and slap you, right? Which isn't very, in my opinion, isn't very interesting, right? I would like to see the Gold Fury have be a more engaging fight. Obviously, not necessarily a Dark Souls boss fight where you have to dedicate all your attention to that, right? Gold Fury isn't supposed to be a major objective, but a little more interesting, like have a knockback or moves that you gotta avoid or something like that. I think it would be a little more interesting if the Gold Fury was a little more engaging, the fight itself. But moving on, that's not it wasn't the big problem before. It's just a fix. It will, a little improvement, I suppose. Ward changes. So they reduced the maximum number of wards from 3 to 2 that each person can place down, right? Killing enemy wards rewards 50 gold, which went up from, I don't think they actually gave any gold. If they gave us very little. Basic vision ward, the range was reduced, and all wards are revealed for 1 second on placed. Eye of Providence has been removed. Let's be honest, Eye of Providence had been removed for years now. They just forgot to actually keep it in the game. Nobody bought Eye of Providence. It was basically a noob trap. There was no reason to buy Eye of Providence. So no change there, none whatsoever. No, the reduction of maximum number of wards that you can put, that however is quite a big deal. And is it an improvement? That I am I'm a little 50-50 on, right? Because on the one hand, I understand that the point is that they want to control the amount of vision each player can put down, right? Because the Smite map is relatively small compared to other MOBAs, so they want to make sure that a player can flood the map with vision. On the other hand, I wouldn't say that's the interesting part of a vision war, so to speak, of the vision metagame. It's just say, oh well, you can't have more vision. I I would say that the more interesting part of the vision meta is vision metagame in any MOBA is the whole vision and counter vision play where you're constantly denying each other vision. So I guess I guess we'll have to see whether it's an improvement on the actual quality of the game. It's definitely going to be a negative thing for solo queue, where a lot of people don't necessarily ward, and now your individual ability to ward is going to be lesser. So now if player A doesn't ward, like if the mid laner or the jungler or whatever, if they don't ward, you have much you have a much smaller ability to ward for them. That said, if I understood correctly, you can place two wards and a sentry, and that's the wards you can carry, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just a little, in my opinion, a little bit of a strange change in general. Like they say that the warding metagame has become stale, and I think it's just an attempt to change the ward game for its own sake, which, eh, I'm not that big on. The the ward, killing wards rewarding gold, that's actually pretty good because it gives you a direct benefit to counter warding. Because before, if you counter warded, your only benefit was hoping that they wouldn't reward again, so you could gank them more easily. Like you would have to abuse that vision advantage. If you didn't get like a gank or something out of it or a buff or whatever, if you didn't get anything after that counter vision play, then you would have literally got nothing out of it, right? And yeah, like this gives you another reward. This gives you another incentive to counter ward to play the counter vision game. So that part of it I really like. I think this is it's a very small thing, in paper, but it actually goes a long way to improve and to motivate people to play a more interesting vision game, right? Basic vision ward range reduced. I can see why. I mean, again, the map in Smite is fairly small, so I can understand that you want to. It's part of the other vision of reducing the amount of vision each player can put on. Eh. This one I really like. The all wards are revealed for 1 second when placed, right? This I really like because previously you sort of had to guess, like when the ward was put down, or if you weren't looking exactly at the place where the ward was put down, like you wouldn't know where it was. You just sort of hear it was somewhere over there, somewhere. Like I guess this discourages the really, really blatant "Hi, in your face" ward. There you go. Oh, you're looking at me. Here's the ward. It sort of, I guess, it rewards. Sorry, the more long-run strategic ward play instead of just, oh, they're all over there. Let me drop a ward, and they're gonna have to drop a sentry ward if they want to get rid of it or something. Although I believe in the patch note updates, they made it so. I'm not entirely sure. Are they supposed to be immune now when you drop them? Okay, yeah, now they're supposed to be immune. So I guess it's a little more. It's for clarity. So now you know where the wards are. But I like the idea that you could hit them. So like you couldn't, if the enemy team reacted fast enough, you couldn't just drop a ward in front of them for free, basically. I like that side of things more. Thought it was more interesting. You had to be a little more strategic, a little more stealthy with your warding. I like that. But guess it's just for a little clarity. Now you know exactly where the ward is when it's placed. Oh well. I have Providence removed. Who cares? Like I have Providence wasn't in the game for like 2 years now, or at least over a year. No one cares. Gold Fury changes. Now Gold Fury rewards now scale. That's an interesting. Gold Fury changes are actually quite interesting. They now scale team gold. They start at 100 and gain 10 gold per minute to a maximum of 350. The XP also scales from 100 to 250, and the Gold Fury now breaks player deployables. So the breaking player deployables is another way to nerf solo potential. Like especially with Ainur could do his pillar cheese where he would aggro the Gold Fury near the wall and then put the pillar here and the Gold Fury would get stuck, like walking against the pillar. And they would get him like what 5 or 6 hits for free. Like yeah, it was fun to do. Mind you, it was very fun to do. But it was cheese. It was basically just cheese, and they don't want the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant to be free, easy solo objectives. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm perfectly okay with that. And the Gold Fury scaling. Now that's a very interesting change because previously here's how the game went. The first 10 minutes or so, the Gold Fury was all the shit, and when it comes to objectives, because she gave a lot of gold. And as the game progressed, this side of the map became dead. The side with the Gold Fury was basically that side of the map because why would you risk even a tower for a Gold Fury? Like this, the reward was little more than killing a tower, like indirect gold gain, except you lost all the vision, all the map control that a tower gives you, and later in the game, like 100 gold per person, 150 gold per person. Who cares? Like, it's not that much of a. It didn't justify the risk of even a single person being there and potentially losing a team fight anywhere else on the map. So, will it be worth it with 350 gold per person? Very likely. Like, we'll see. As the game advances, gold has less and less value, like naturally, because once you get the 6 items, you don't use gold for anything else. At the very least, it's gonna keep the Gold Fury relevant for longer into the game. Like it's not as soon as the Fire Giant spawns and people can and the team can do it. Like the Gold Fury is basically forgotten. But at least there's gonna be a longer period during the match where the Gold Fury is gonna be relevant, given how much gold it gives you. But like in the long run, it's still gonna become irrelevant because it doesn't give you stats, it doesn't give you any different benefit, right, than gold. And once you get 6 items, gold is nothing. You can't do anything with it, the extra gold. Now, kill bounties. XP rewards for god kills in the games have been adjusted, and basically, basically you get less experience for killing low-level enemies, and you can still get experience for killing high-level enemies, right? So this is actually a really good change in my view because it prevents snowballing. So what happens is that now if you get ahead and you keep farming your lane opponent or the low level enemies, that if you focus a couple player or two and you keep farming them, you get much less reward in XP. And in Smite more than League of Legends or in Dota, levels are very important because of base scaling. Like characters scale much better with the base stats and with levels alone. So this means that if you get ahead, you don't get such a free ride to continue ahead, right? Because before, if you started ahead, you got like 2, 3 more kills. Suddenly, you were like 4, 5 levels ahead of the opponent. Suddenly, they couldn't kill you, right? So now you're still gonna get ahead because you still kill them. You still got all the advantages you got from killing them. You still get gold. You still remove them from the map for a time where you can farm and they can't. You still get the advantage, like they're at least 4 versus 5, so maybe you can push for an objective like Gold Fury, like Fire Giant, like a tower or something, or at least ransack their jungle. You can gank something. But now you don't get as much of an experience advantage just for killing them, just for continuously farming the same character, right? So, in my opinion, this is a really really good change. It's a really good anti-snowball change, and I think it's just gonna have a positive, impact in the game. But that's really all there is to it, to the kill bounties. Jungle creatures. Now this is actually a part of a bigger change, right? When it comes to the hog change, and we'll cover that later. But yeah, basically several camps are getting less healthy. Most of the camps are getting less health, and they do less damage. Yeah, basically that happens with all of them. Like Cyclops, Harpies, buff holders, they're all getting less health, and they're gonna do like 3 to 4 less damage per attack. So what does this mean? Well, this means several things. Number one, Hog is probably not gonna be necessary anymore to jungle. Is it gonna be efficient? That's a different question. But that means things like Ymir starting with Red Pot might be way stronger now than they were before. Like level 1 Hog is still gonna be important to secure the big camps, like to help you clear the camps faster. It's still gonna be a lot of true damage dealt to the bosses, like every 60 or 90 seconds. But you no longer need it to survive, right? You may even get away if you don't do a lot of camp splitting in solo queue and such. You may even get away with more and more gods veering away from Bumba's mask. And I guess we'll talk about this a little better when we talk about the hog changes further ahead, because this is a contextual change. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't look at the hog. Overall, the jungle is easier, so it should be easier for any character to do the jungle healthier, to stay healthier in the jungle. Basically, that's it. Right. So Conquest jungle camps. Yeah, overall, all the jungle camps had their respawn timers reduced. Right, the mid harpies now spawn again at 10, although they had their both the mid and the back harpies had their golden experience change diminished. I changed to lower, got lowered, I believe. Let me take a quick look. Yeah, they received. No, the small harpies got more XP, but the big harpies got a little less. So basically, the back camps are probably gonna stay about the same, but the mid camps got a little nerf when it comes to experience. Alright, so this is a lot of changes rolled into one. Mid harpies change. Mid harpies back at 10 seconds. I hate this. I hate this with a passion, and I think this was the single best change in season 2 that the mid harpies stopped spawning at 10, and I think this is the single worst change right now, right? And I will explain why. I'm not just saying that. Here's the thing: you have the map in Conquest, which is, if you want to think about it, the map in Conquest sort of divided in the middle, and this part belongs to a team, this part belongs to the other one. And especially early into the game, you can totally invade the other side. It's totally possible, but it is a risky proposition. It comes with the risk that if you're caught out here, if you're on this side of the map and you're caught out here, suddenly this entire side of the map collapses on you much faster than your team can get there to help you, right? So overall, each team has their side. And then you have the mid harpies. The mid harpies are neutral territory. They're just as easy for anyone to grab, which means they're generally a priority, because the longer they stay there, the more easily the other team will grab them, or the bigger the chance the other team will go by and just grab them, right? And back when they spawned at 10 seconds, one of the reasons that they were originally moved, at least in my opinion, one of the reasons I wanted them to be removed initially, was because they unbalanced the map. You can't just leave the mid harpies there, right? So when they spawn, you have to be there and get them as soon as they spawn, right? I appreciate the fact that their experience advantage was diminished overall, like for the rest of the map, because again, for the rest of the game, I mean, because they lower the snowball potential of just missing one mid harpies. But the fact that they spawn in the 10-second mark, that means that you're gonna force teams to be there. Now, ideally, you just say, oh, this goes to one team, this goes to the other, they're two sides, who cares? Well, the problem is, teams aren't really going to fight for mid harpies at the 10-second mark. Because, like, if you lose a fight 10 seconds into the game, and you give away harpies on both sides, and first blood, and maybe another set of kills, you risk losing the game immediately. Like, you risk losing the game within the first 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You're not gonna do that. So what happens is that there's basically just a pseudo gentleman's agreement where one side is sort of agreed to take one and the other side's agreed to take the other, which immediately imbalances the sides, because both teams want to have their three players on one side, because the red, especially now that the sides were even, so both teams want their mid player on this side with the red, and they want the jungler and the solo lane on the other side with the speed. But someone is gonna have to come on this side. No, you're gonna have to have three people on this side to help with the mid harpies here. Well, three people on this side are helping with their mid harpies. Like, so these guys are gonna do the mid harpies. They're gonna do the red. They're gonna do the the buff, whatever, and they're gonna go back to base to their lanes. These guys, they're gonna do the speed camp. These guys to do the red, or they did the red, whatever. But they have to go back, grab the red. They have to go do the blue. Like, it makes such a mess of the start, and there was no good reason for it. There was such an interesting meta game being developed around starts, right? The more basic start was one team. They start 3 players on red, 2 players on speed, right? And then speed goes to the blue, then go to solo lane, or they rotate to the back camps and then go to the lane. The other side goes to purple camp and respective lanes. Then you had another start where 3 people manned the speed buff in order to get the solo lane and the jungler faster. right? Then you had another start where people, there was all these kinds of starts that were being developed right now by teams. There were like, they were their own meta mini game, and they give different advantages and disadvantages, and they had nothing to do with which side of the map you start on, and everything to do with, well, do we want to start? Do we want to give the mid player an advantage? Do we want to give the solo laner an advantage? Who do we want to get to the lane faster, and who do we want to share more experience? Like, that was an entire very interesting metagame that was being developed right now, and that's gonna go all to the toilet right now. That's gonna go to the toilet because you can't risk losing the mid furies, and that unbalances the sides, and that's just bad, in my opinion. Like, so I'm 100, 300% against the mid RP spawning at 10 seconds again. Let them spawn at the 3-minute mark like they were before. That was perfect. So other than that, like, the jungle overall, the other change is that the jungle is respawning faster, right? So what does that mean? That means there's going to be a lot more to farm. Like the back harpies are going to spawn every 80 seconds instead of 100. So that's 20 seconds faster, and they were already up fairly often. And the jungle and all the buff camps are going to be spawning 3 minutes. If my calculations aren't wrong, if buffs last 3 minutes, that means that there's a possibility for buffs to now last about 100% of the time, which is potentially risky. Like, on a balance point of view, maybe, we'll see. But more importantly, it's that there's a lot more to farm in the jungle, which opens up two potentials. Number one, farming jungles are back, right? It's entirely possible that we'll see junglers that don't necessarily want to have a high impact in the early game. Like, they can gank. If they have the potential for it, they'll gank. But if they don't, they'll just farm themselves up to the late game. Junglers like Kali, like Osiris, like a multitude of other junglers that don't necessarily have a lot of impact early game, like Shaq, like DJ Pernick is Shaq. They don't necessarily want to have a lot of impact early game. They just want to farm themselves up to that monstrous late game, right? They might be back, like Freya. They might be back because now there's going to be more experience per minute. There's going to be more gold per minute floating around in the jungle, so it's going to be a more viable tactic to do that. The other side of things is now characters with really good clear time, like Thanatos and, I don't know, Thor, I suppose, if you max the Berserker Barrage first. Yeah, basically those two. Now those characters can actually pose a bigger threat, I suppose, because now that jungle camps are going to be up more often, it opens up the possibility of, like, someone who is slower in the jungle, like say an early game Kali, they might still be doing one side when you go in, ransack their jungle, go out, clear the other side, clear your side, and then go back and clear their other side. I don't know if this is making any sense, but my point is that a really, really fast jungle clearer might be able to do his jungle and then yours. Maybe. I don't know. This is something that's going to be pending testing. Again, PTS, it's not necessarily a very good place to test things right now. It's one of the things I said in the State of the Game articles. But it's going to depend very much on how quickly, especially with the change, because there's a lot of changes to the jungle right now, right? With the hog changes we'll talk about below, with the fact that the jungle camps themselves are easier to clear. So someone who wasn't dependent on hog to clear before, like Thanatos again, like maybe Bastet early game. Like, Bastet runs out of mana, so I'm not entirely sure like who would be the fastest clearers other than Thanatos. Like Thor, I suppose. I like Thor overall to clear the jungle. Maybe they'll be fast enough to clear the jungle and cripple the opponent's jungle. Like, this has potential to be a more interesting jungle metagame, but it also runs the risk of forcing one meta, whichever of those turns out to be the most efficient, whether it is just farming or counter jungling. Because that's what they said. That's one of the things that they said during the developer stream, is that now, because the camps are going to be up more often, there is a cost of opportunity. There's a bigger cost of opportunity to ganking, right? Because if you don't have any camps up, why not gank? As long as you don't die, you don't lose anything for it. Right? You're just putting free pressure on the lane. But if you do have camps to clear, if you gank and you don't get anything out of it, you're risking getting your camp stolen. Yeah. So my point is it going to become more efficient to simply farm up the jungle now and forget all about ganking? Like, you'll gank if someone overextends, or if that happens, like, you have your ultimate, sure, let's gank. Or is it going to be a situation where the fastest clear risks taking everything, basically? We'll see. I'm not 100% certain on this. I'm going to have to see some proper high level play before I can judge these changes, but tentatively, I'm gonna say they're good because they at least seem to allow more styles of jungling, right? Other than clear jungle, go gank. So if you don't have strong early ganks, you're inherently at a disadvantage. So now you're gonna be able to, hopefully you're gonna be able to clear jungle and gank, or just counter jungle while they're ganking, or farm up and up to the point where you get like really strong in the mid and late game. We'll see how it actually plays, how it actually works out. Item changes, and now this is a big one for me. Hand of the Gods was changed. Now, Hand of the Gods level 1 only hits one target, always the one with the highest health. Hand of the Gods level 2 hits two targets, and Feast of the Gods and Wrath of the Gods, sorry, hits three targets each, I believe. Yeah, I think so. They only hit three targets. Always the ones with the highest health in the radius. This is a massive change. There's another change to Wrath of the Gods we'll cover later. We'll cover afterwards. This is a massive change, and in my opinion, a really good change. Like, if you've ever spoken to a professional solo laner, or anyone related to the professional or high level scene, you will undoubtedly have heard about players complaining that they can't take this character or that character because their enemies are going to take a assassin or a bruiser, a warrior with Hand of the Gods, and basically steal their early game uncontested. They're going to steal their buffs. They're going to outpush them if they don't have an exceptional clear. Hand of the Gods, as it was before, was a problem in my opinion. It put a lot of pressure on characters, especially in the solo lane, that couldn't take it, and it made it far too easy to invade and rob everybody early game, right? And it still translated well into the laning phase, especially with melee characters, because you could at the very least, every 90 seconds you could kill the backline, the archer line, which is the high damage line, which made for some really dangerous potential aggression early on, right? You run at the enemy, you think, oh, I still got a full wave, and then suddenly they clear your archers, and suddenly your big damage line is dead, right? And they're seasoned because they basically just bum rushed you. So I really like this change. It's still gonna be viable, or a viable pick in the jungle. It's still gonna be useful for characters that want to secure their jungle camps. But now you pay more for it. So I think we're gonna stop seeing Hand of the Gods in the jungle, sorry, in the solo lane, for most characters at least. Like, characters that don't absolutely need Feast of the Gods or Wrath of the Gods, like, further on for any reason, I think they're gonna fall out of favor of buying Hand of the Gods in general in the solo lane just to get in and try to steal something. The other issue with it is that it also slows down the early jungle clear, but that's why all the other changes came before that made the jungle a lot easier. So conversely, it also makes the jungle less dependent on Hand of the Gods. I'm not sure this is a good thing, but it should at the very least open the role a little more. Maybe we'll start seeing junglers that couldn't really jungle that well before because they like mage junglers, or I don't know. It was mostly mage junglers that didn't want to build Hand of the Gods. Maybe we'll start seeing junglers that don't want hand, or like Kali. Maybe Kali won't need to buy Hand of the Gods, so she can buy and what's it called? Oh yeah, beats. Sorry, forgot about it. So maybe there is going to be a very positive thing. Like overall, I think this is a very good thing. It removes a very good change. It removes a lot of the early game pressure of one side building Hand of the Gods early, and I'm behind that 100%. Now the bad change. Now, Wrath of the Gods rank 3 no longer deals a percentage of health damage to objectives. Like it no longer executes, right? So now it deals 900 true damage to the objectives, and subsequent, like if you use more than one, the damage is reduced by 50%, and the health bars just turn yellow at 900 health instead of at 20%. But before, rank 3 did it executed the objective 100% if their health was below 20, right? What this meant is that it was incredibly difficult, if not outright impossible, for any non-Hawk 3 sort of damage to try to contest it, right? It gave supports and junglers that wanted to build it their own place in an objective fight, right? Instead of just out of raw damage, you had these characters that these characters secured the objective. That's what they did, because you couldn't out damage them. If they didn't mess up the hog, there was no way for any other character to out damage them in the objective fight. So they had their value there, right? No, there isn't. 900, like early game, you can't contest them, but as the game advances, most mages that start to get a proper build for at least 5 items, like characters like Alkwang, Kukulkan, Scylla, uh, maybe even Ra, maybe Ra. Most of the high damage characters are gonna be able to do more than 900 damage, which renders the entire point of building Wrath of the Gods null and void. So I think this is an extremely unhealthy change for the meta in general, because now here's what's gonna happen. If one side of the once one team has one high damage long range nuke, you can no longer do Gold Fury or Fire Giant, especially with the leashing changes early in the season, right? Because you take the risk of you have no way of securing that camp of the objective. You take the risk of you're doing that objective. You have the hog. You don't miss the hog, but you take an Earthshaker from near the end of the lane that comes in and steals it from you, and you can't do anything about it. So now, especially Fire Giant, because Fire Giant is going to be still going to be the biggest objective. You're only going to do Fire Giant when the entire enemy team is dead. It also takes away value from support and junglers from even trying to contest, this kind of objectives. I don't see the value in this. I don't see the value in this, because before you already could do it, but you would have to either CC them or CC the jungler or the support, usually the support, or kill them first, or like run on them mistiming their hog, like capitalize on their mistake. Sorry, I'm thirsty. Right now, like the onus was changed. Before it was, if they don't mess up the hog, they secure it. They secure the objective. They started. Now is the one with the highest damage. If they don't mess up, they secure it, regardless of who started it. Which it's just, I don't see the value in this. It's just throwing a sort of chaotic random spanner in the mix, and I'm not seeing what this brings to the game. The only real advantage that I can see is that it now supports are not gonna take hog. I think it's just gonna be like junglers are probably gonna take hog anyways, because it helps their early clear a lot, and there's gonna be more to clear. So junglers take hog, and that's it. Support's just gonna take like blink if they need it, and curses or shell or girdle of support or something like that. But I don't think this is good for the game. In my opinion, I think the whole play, like the fact that junglers and supports suddenly had they had that extra value when it came to securing objectives that just raw damage outputting classes didn't. They had that in, for example, contesting objectives or in team fights. That gave every member of the team a different value in different things, and that was interesting, in my opinion. So I'm totally on board with diminishing Hand of the Gods radius and early game impact, not when it comes to objective secure. Because now you're like, once more, now the highest damage dealer on both teams, highest burst damage dealer on any team, is going to be the one that secures the objective. They're going to be the highest threat when it comes to securing objectives as well. I don't like that. Okay, so next change, greater sprint. No longer removes in-hand speed penalty. Again, not a change I'm a fan of, right? Because the problem with hunters was never the greater sprint, right? At no point it was the greater sprint. In fact, the greater sprint has been mostly untouched for a long time now, and hunters have been better, worse, whatever. Like, that wasn't an issue, and greater sprint had a very healthy place in the meta overall compared to blink and the heavenly agility. Greater sprint was an offensive version, or well, like an offensive spell if you wanted, more so than heavenly agility for basic attack characters. If you were a character that wanted to constantly move around and use your basic attacks, you wanted greater sprint. If you didn't want to constantly use your basic attacks, then maybe you wanted blink, because blink moves you instantly and it's a blink, it's not a leap, you don't have to traverse the space. So it created a very interesting dynamic, even if blink wasn't picked up very often for a different variety of reasons. It also created an interesting play of how much you wanted to spend on your actives, because sprint gave you a very high amount of versatility. Because now I think their objective was to kill sprint and to buff haste and fatalis. Because first they buffed haste and fatalis, so the passive, like every time you hit someone you get a second of no movement speed penalty. It became 2 seconds. So I guess they wanted to sort of force that into the meta. But then they reverted the change haste and fatalis. So now I'm just not sure what they wanted, right? I'm not sure. I don't know what the point was to basically nerf. Like, if you wanted to nerf greater sprint in something, it would be the cooldown or the fact that it cleanses or makes you slow immune, not the fact that it lets hunters basic attack. Because right now it's just a getaway. It's just a getaway tool. Or if it's a catch-up tool, it's like it's just in an awkward place, isn't it? Like, before you could use it to continue doing your thing, basically. Just you have like those 6 seconds of really high speed where you could do those really cool plays of juking and playing around. You had like the Barracuda and the Allied sort of dancing around each other and trying to fight each other, and that was interesting. That was nice. Like, and it forced you to play, to sort of go into the game. Okay, do I send back the power aspect of my build to buy more items, or do I go into sprint, invest more in sprint to get that extra burst of mobility and like outplay potential in that moment? I don't see what this is bringing to the game of positive, other than let's just nerf hunters in general. Let's just nerf hunters, cause fuck it, I don't know. Heavenly agility reduced duration from 6 to 5 seconds. Okay. it the sprint and the heavenly agility changes just feel like changes for their own sake. Like, people are taking this, we don't want them to take this. We want to see something different, so let's change this. In my opinion, is always a bad thing to do something. It's always a bad reason to do a change. Yeah. Yeah. So Ace and Fatalis was originally buffed in sort of, I guess you 2 seconds, the passive, like whenever you hit someone you had 2 seconds where you could basic attack at will without penalty. And then that was reverted, so I'm not entirely sure what the point was. Like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen to the metagame with the hunters. I think hunters like Amuzenkap and Artemis might actually just default to blink, because now that they can't attack and run, right? With sprint, might as well, like, since they don't have one hard mobility skill, a leap or a blink or a really good dash, they might as well just grab that in their passive since sprint is just eh. I'm not entirely sure if everyone's just gonna do that. I'm I don't like this change at all. Shin size price was reduced from 3050 to 2850. It went down by 200 gold. Okay. Yeah, like I don't think there was a no. It's above 20 chainsaw characters. Characters like Kali, like what's his face, Osiris, like Nemesis, who also Nemesis could just build crit, but I guess this is a more efficient build, especially if you want to build them more bruiserish, because you don't need as many items. So yeah, it's a little buff to their power curve. It's not gonna bring back the unicorn build anytime soon because of all the other changes, but it's good, I suppose. Shoes of the Magi, one of my favorite changes. Magical power reduced from 65 to 40, now provides plus 10 magical penetration, but it costs 50 gold extra. Thank fuck for that, right? This isn't gonna solve all the problems, and it might actually exacerbate a little of the Guardian problems because their base damages are so high. But mages are once again relevant in the early and mid game because they have penetration. I would have done slightly different. I would have actually maybe like put the power at the same level as CDR, maybe a little lower, but just given it CDR boots, I mean, and give it the 15 penetration. But I guess that's a math situation. I haven't done the math, just I'm eyeballing it. I'm hoping they did the math before they changed it. So like if this is better mathematically, sure, go with it. I'm just eyeballing it, as I said. But early penetration for mages is so important. I've spoken about this over and over and over again. I am a little worried though, not because of this change, but because of all the other nerfs to hunters, specifically the greater sprint. Specifically the greater sprint. That maybe hunters might have indirectly been hit too hard. But I really like the boot changes. Mages need the penetration early. Leave the penetration. That's fine. So Magi's Blessing nerfed again because I don't know. I don't actually know. It costs a little more, and now the passive is 90 seconds instead of 60. Okay, I'm partially on board with it. Like I think just changing the cooldown from 60 to 90 would have been enough. But maybe it's the entire fundamental of Magi's Blessing that doesn't necessarily work, right? Because I hate using. Oh no, I don't. I use it all the time. League of Legends comparison, but again, I've explained it several times. They're very similar games in a lot of aspects, especially when it comes to design. League of Legends has something similar to Magi's Blessing. The difference is it's a really solid anti-magical magical protection item if you want, like overall. But instead of giving you something like you have two major magical defense options in League of Legends. One gives you CDR, gives you a little better stat, gives you I think a little better stat, CDR, and like extra healing if you have inherent healing. Their Magi's Blessing equivalent has a little less, I think, protections or something, or maybe the protections are exactly the same. I don't remember, but it's a little more expensive. Doesn't give you CDR or extra healing, but it gives you the bubble that is popped by any spell. Now, this makes it both better as a generic anti-mage item, but it also makes it not as strong as an anti-CC item because any spell can break it, right? Now, in Smite, there's a lot more CC going around in general. Like more characters have hard CC, or CC in general, let alone hard CC. So maybe Magi's Blessing works, like just as an anti-CC spell. But I think like I think the entire item is a little muddy right now and probably could use a redesign. Like, what is the purpose of Magi's Blessing? Why does it have mixed? Um, why does it have very small amount of mixed resistances and health, and then just an anti-CC bubble? Is it supposed to be like? It seems like the item is a little confused, so to speak, of what it wants to be. I don't know. Like overall, I'm okay with the change, I guess, but I just don't. I'm not sure they know where they want to go with the item. For all that's worth. Because like 90 seconds is a long time, right? And without the bubble, Magi's Blessing isn't necessarily worth it for its stats. Because previously it also had sort of the tenacity passive with the CC reduction, CC duration reduction, but now it doesn't. So whenever Magi's Blessing bubble is popped, it's not really worth the stats for the cost. And is it really worth to buy an item that's only worth its cost once every 90 seconds? We'll see. I'm a little confused on that one, to be honest. Not confused, I'm a little iffy on that one. Heartseeker and Do More, thank the fucking gods, another one. They basically only stack based on player kills and no longer on minion kills, and you lose half of your stacks on death. So basically, they become sort of the occult and Magi Soul Stealer, which basically means that in any serious setting, they're basically fucking out of the door. Thank you. I would rather have deleted them, but this is the next best thing. They basically show off items. They are horrible items for the game's meta as they were before. Now they're basically just show off items. They're basically just, look, I'm so good. I'm so confident I'm gonna steamroll you guys that I can buy this item. Right? I'm okay with that. Like, I would have deleted them, but if you can't delete them, this is fine. There's a couple of bug fixes. Is that everything? Oh no, Bastet has added nerf to their cats. Now, yeah, the cat's health was reduced about 150 health of the cat. I don't know, per cats to the total of the cats, I suppose. When the first Hog changes were announced that Hog would only target like one enemy, the first thing that I thought was, holy shit, this is a massive buff to Bastet. Because one of the ways people deal with Bastet is just hog the cats. I guess that's why they saw it as well, which is why they're lowering the cat's health. So I buy sprint early, I suppose, if you have a Bastet on your enemies on your enemy team, because it's still gonna like it doesn't necessarily make up for it. Because before Hog hit all three cats for like 400 something damage, I think, and now the cats just had their health reduced by 150. So I think this is overall still a buff for Bastet. At least against any enemy that has a hog nearby on him or on the support nearby or something. So I guess overall this is this is still a buff for Bastet, I think. Except in the very late game. It's a nerf for Bastet in the very late game because most of the time you just nuke the cats, you don't really care about hogging them. But overall, early, this is still a buff for Bastet. And I think that's it actually. Yeah, so to recap, like too long didn't hear because there's no reading, you're not reading anything. Too long didn't hear. Jungle changes. Jungle changes the camp spawn faster, the camp spawn faster, and the mid fury spawn at 10 seconds now. Camp spawning faster might be very good because it might make it possible to make more metas possible, other than just clear camps and farm and the gank. Might make, for example, farm junglers or counter jungling more prominent, right? Or it might enforce one meta depending on the numbers, and that's something that will have to be tested. Fury spawning at the mid at 10 seconds again. That's horrible. That's gonna unbalance the sides again. That's gonna degenerate the meta back to what it used to be in the early game, which is horrible in my opinion. Hog changes. The fact that the hog no longer hits multiple enemies at level 1 and 2, it was basically nerfed at level 1 and 2, is really good in my opinion. It promotes a much healthier early game. and takes away the early pressure of Hog. As the like, well, they have Hog, we don't. Therefore, they're basically just gonna steamroll us the early game. That's good. Losing the execute late in the game is bad because it's basically gonna make it a lot easier. It's removing the role of junglers and supports in the whole jungle in the whole objective metagame, and putting much more focus on just raw burst, especially ranged burst, which in my opinion is just bad. Well, what else? Less snowball potential on kills and just farming lower level enemies, which is just good, just positive. I'm 100% behind that. Greater sprint nerf. I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's just we want to change things, which is generally a bad thing to do. Gold Fury changes, positive, but could still use some work because now it's gonna be more relevant throughout the game. Still gonna get to a point where it's no longer relevant, but it's gonna have a bigger period of relevancy during the game. And I'm losing my voice actually. I've been talking for like a half an hour now. I should shut up. War changes, right? War changes, less vision. Partly seem to be we just want to change things. Partly it's to make it so more people have to ward instead of just 2 people, trying to cover the entire map. So both good and bad. And I think that's it. That's yeah, that's basically it. Oh yeah, Rip, Doom Orb, and Heartseeker. You will not be missed. Uh, feel free to leave comments and feedback down below. And thank you very much for sticking to me for like what is probably half an hour now or more. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your support.